Hello, welcome back to the Cubase Fundamentals course. Today we're going to start looking at a subject called VariAudio. Now this only exists in Cubase Pro. As far as I'm concerned, it's probably the main reason to buy Cubase Pro because I could not write music without VariAudio. This is basically pitch manipulation primarily. And over the course of the next couple of episodes, I'm going to show you all of the features of VariAudio and why I think it's so essential. And it really is truly essential in this case, because what we're going to do is pitch correct some of my vocals. Now, I truly cannot sing. This is not false modesty. I really can't sing. And I thought, well, rather than ask Pauline to sing for me, she has a fabulous voice, go and check out any of my songs. I thought, well, I'm going to do it because I am so bad. If VariAudio can make me sound anywhere half decent, then it's an incredible tool. Now, in order to do this, I've had to pre-record some audio. I'm not going to let you listen to me try to sing this stuff in manually. So we've got a file in our folder, in our audio folder, which I'm now going to import into the pool. So if I open my pool, I also noticed that I've got some unnecessary audio here, not being very good with removing my unused stuff. But what I really want to do is import this file here, vocal 1. We're going to open it, and that's now in our pool. So you can import any audio you want into the pool. All I did for the purpose of this demonstration was load this project up, get the vocal in, and then move it to a temporary folder, close the project without saving so that everything was binned, and then basically dragged that file back into my audio folder, and now I've just imported it. Now that it's in the pool, I can drag it into the project. So I'll pick it up and drag it into my project. And before we do anything at all, here is the raw naked audio. Please don't judge me too harshly. The whole point is to try to make something that's really bad sound good. Okay, so as you can see, quite the challenge ahead of us. First thing that I'm going to do is audio warp it. So open the audio, and I'll do this in the main audio warp panel rather than the sample editor. Open audio warp, go into free warp, and as you know now, I always do audio warp processing in 2-bar chunks. So you can see here my first note is very late. Okay, so that's a very quick 30-second audio warp fix. Okay, so the start of the audio is now fixed. And what we're going to do is try to put that in pitch. So this time, instead, when we go into our full sample editor, rather than opening audio warp, I'm going to open VariAudio instead. We need to activate VariAudio by clicking this little Edit VariAudio button. Now here are some new functions that you want to learn. Zoom vertically. Now on the keyboard it's Shift H. Shift H begins to zoom up, and you can see you get much better definition on the audio. And Shift G to zoom back out again. Now I don't have those, I've got them set up on shortcut keys. But what you want to do is get your zooming in, your Shift H, to the point where you can see the highest note that's been sung and the lowest note that's been sung. Once you've got to that stage, choose the zone over which you're going to do editing, zoom to locators. That gets you absolutely fine. If the song's playing and you zoom vertically, it'll get its locators all horribly wrong. So get your zoom fixed. Decide how high you want each of the key lanes to be, and then once all of that's done, press zoom locators, and you can do that while it's cycling. So if I zoom, you can see it just got its locators wrong, but then when I press zoom locators, after I've done all of that, it pulls it back and all is well. And now we're going to try to make this sound a little bit more acceptable. Now you can see that generally I'm not an absolute million miles out on most of the pitches, but they're all slightly wrong. So this first note here is supposed to be a C, and you can see it's slightly too high. Well, what I can do is pick it up, drag it down. I've got my options set to absolute pitch snap mode, which basically means when I pick these little blocks of pitch data up, they snap to the quantized pitch of the key rather than a relative mode. You can put pitch snap on as relative, and now however far out your note is to start with, each time you move up it'll maintain that distance. But I pretty much always operate in absolute mode. You can see this smart controls is set to all. That's all of these little red squares around the notes. There's a little bit too much to talk about today to cover in one, and everything we don't cover today I'll make sure to cover next time. Now what you're seeing here, these red blocks, are the bits of data that Cubase has identified as pitched notes. So VariAudio fundamentally is designed to process vocals, as I said earlier, and it's very good at finding something that could be reasonably interpreted as pitched. You see this zone here, these couple of beats, there are no red squares. It's because this was total silence and this is me taking a breath. Okay, so there's no pitched data in that breath. As soon as I start making a tonal sound, then Cubase identifies it as pitched and we jump back into the red boxes. Now sometimes Cubase gets it wrong. Well, depending on how bad the performance was. This here is actually a couple of notes. Da, da. So that's a C down to a B. Now it wasn't sufficiently distinct for Cubase to recognise it as two separate notes, but that's not a problem. See this little black line at the bottom of the box, it turns white when I hover over it, it turns into a pair of scissors as well. So I can cut that segment up and turn it into two notes, and now I can adjust the pitch of each of those segments separately. There's all sorts of times when you're processing in VariAudio when the locators will get screwed. I'll just press zoom locators and fix it all again. This note down here is supposed to be a G2, but can you see it's splayed all over the place? So there's quite a few things that we're going to do to fix this one. First thing I'm going to do is pick it up and drag it, and it more or less centers it on the note. If you want to perform a little bit of fine control that the quantized snap hasn't got quite right, if you press the shift key and move these boxes, then it overrides the snap and you've got complete control over the height of the segment. And now all of these boxes, all of these little squares around the segment all mean a different thing. Let's zoom in to this bit here. We can have a really good look at what's going on. The first one that I'm going to concentrate on is the one in the middle at the top, and it says straighten pitch curve. If I click on that box and drag down, it will flatten the entire note. Now if you do it too much, you're going to end up sounding like an auto-tuned hip-hop singer where they've got the really strange kind of artifacts. I want to maintain some kind of timbral quality to the note, so I'll just flatten it a little bit because it was too extreme. Just zoom back out again. You can zoom in too far when you're processing VariAudio. You lose focus on what you're actually trying to do. Now can you see this entire note is basically on an angle, kind of a 30-degree angle, and I want it to be more horizontal. I'm basically just rising in pitch over the course of the whole note. There are two ways I can do that. I can either pick up the left-hand box, which says tilt. I pick that up and move it. I drag the left-hand side of the note, and the anchor point, that white line in the middle, is set by the little diamond at the top. This says set a tilt or rotate anchor. So if I move that anchor somewhere else and then drag, I drag about that pivot instead. I can push the right hand side down and I've flattened the wave. I'll just Control Z to undo some of that stuff. The second option is to rotate the entire segment, and to do that I head over to either of these boxes, the left or right hand side, press the Alt key, and now we get a new cursor and the entire segment rotates around that central axis. So that's just a convenient way of doing two jobs in one, picking the left hand side up, moving the right hand side down. That's rotating. Then press the Shift key down to move the note up a tiny little bit. This note here is supposed to be A2 and it's not bad. It tails off a little bit at the end. I'm going to pick this anchor up and fix that. This note over here is a bit of a train wreck. I'm going to try tilting it and see if I can fix it that way. And then Shift, click, drag up. Not bad. Let's hear those first few notes. Da, 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 da. Not bad. Okay, we're improving. This is supposed to be a C. Shift, click, drag it up. Your center point is the absolute kind of theoretically perfect pitch right in the middle of each one of these boxes. So anywhere inside this box is technically a C. And you do have quite a lot of latitude. You know, human beings, people performing with musical instruments, they're never perfectly pitched and not really supposed to be. So having a little bit of latitude is okay. This B is a bit of a mess. It's too wide, it's too variant, so I'll just flatten it a little bit. Da, 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 da. Now most of this note is okay, but the beginning bit is a bit too erratic. So what I'm going to do is get my scissors out, cut it at a point where the pitch was perfect. So this is the bit that I need to fix, and I'm not going to be interrupting or interfering with the second half of the note. Now I can flatten this. Now be careful when you flatten notes that are immediately adjacent to another one, because if you go too far, you're going to end up with a too steep a line as one note kind of jumps to the next one, and it'll be overly dramatic. You'll have to audition this stuff and listen to it as you go. Obviously I'm talking to you as we're doing all of this stuff, and I'm using my eyes, the Cubase representation of the notes. You get to know what will work and what won't. Let's try that. Da, 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 da. Not bad. I tail off just at the end. I'm going to pick this up, but can you see I only need to fix the very end? So I'm going to move my anchor all the way over here and just pick that up. There were two ways that I could have fixed that little tail off at the end. Just undo the anchor and move this back over to where it was. My other alternative was to cut the end of the note up and move that whole thing. And I don't even have to hold the Shift key down here. I'm going to let Quantize sort it for me. And the Quantize pitch function will just snap it to the middle of the note. So that's the first half of the phrase fixed. Let's have a look at the second half. Okay, this note at the beginning is supposed to be a D, and I went massively overshot. So I'll just pick it up, drag it down to the D. I think it's too loud as well. I kind of did a plosive thing into the microphone, so we'll fix that in a moment. Now this is actually D down to C down to B, and it does a kind of cascade thing. And then we jump back up to, I think this is supposed to be a C here. So I'm going to cut that note. I'm going to bring this down. I think I'm going to rotate that note because it's a pretty straight. So Alt, Tilt, do that kind of business. And you can see that it's more or less centered now, so I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm flattening it to bring this really steep dip a little bit under control. Let's see what that sounds like. I'm just going to flatten this and bring that down a bit. Really concentrate on the B nature of that note, you know, get it as much centered as I can. Okay, now this first note I said was too loud. How do we make something quieter? So bottom right hand corner is volume, and I'm just going to pull, let's say 4 dB off that note, because it was clearly quite dramatically too loud. Now these dips at the beginning of notes where people kind of portamento into the note that they're supposed to be singing, this is actually part of the A that I'm singing here, and I'm going to fix it a little bit by shift clicking and dragging it up a bit, but I'm not going to come up all the way, because those little portamentos are actually an artifact of how we sound when we sing, so it doesn't all want to be fixed. And you can see that at this point I'm really just kind of working by eye. It's one of the few situations when you can correct by eye and trust that it's going to work. That's supposed to be G-A-G. Fix this G. That's a rotate. Rotate it around the anchor. Shift click. Drag it up. This needs to be an A. I'm going to flatten it a little bit. Pull that side down a bit. That's okay. And this is a right old mess. I think this first part needs to be quite dramatically processed. And here I've got that dangerous vertical line situation here, so I'll have to make sure that still sounds okay. And then I'll cut this up and just pick it up a bit and drag that down a bit. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, let's get the entire sequence, take it out of solo mode, see what it sounds like. I'm just going to smooth this note off. I've left it a little bit too angled. Pull it up a tiny bit there. We're nearly done for today. The one thing that I'm going to do finally is move it to the top of the stack, because my vocals are always above my guitars. Click in any empty region and colour the currently selected track pink, which is my colour for vocals. And finally I'm going to add a reverb to my vocal, so I'm going to use the RoomWorks SE plugin. I know that VariAudio is Cubase Pro only, but I'm trying to keep as much as I possibly can generic. Reverbs are usually dealt with as sends. That's nice. And finally, we're going to add that to a group track. And this is going to be vocal master. Drag it down to its proper place in the list of master tracks. And that's the dark pink vocal group colour. And now we just need to get the levels balanced. Send effect should always be 100%. Forgot to do that. Which means I'll just need to send less to it. Da, 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 da. There you go, that's nice enough. It might still not sound like Pavarotti, but at least it's a damn sight better. I've had a bit of a change of heart on how I'm delivering these projects to my patrons. Up until now, I've been delivering the project at the end of the episode. From this point onwards, I'm going to start delivering them as they are at the beginning of the episode, so that if you want to follow the processes along exactly as I'm doing them, then you'll have an opportunity to do it. And in the next episode, you'll get the file as it was at the end of the last episode. So yeah, that was a pretty heavy session. We learned quite a few features there. We'll leave it for today, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much for watching.